Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, my name is Ron, and today I'm gonna be giving you another houseplant tour. Yes, this is my second houseplant tour, and this will kind of serve as a benchmark for 2022. So you're gonna see all of my plants, you're gonna see all of my happy plants, all of my sad plants, some propagation updates, the whole shebang. So it's kind of long overdue. You know, I've been wanting to show you some updates on a lot of my plants, but I just haven't found the time to do so. There's a lot been going on in my personal life. For example, my dog Pia had to undergo surgery. She's doing fine, so I had to deal with that. I've been really busy with work and some other crazy stuff, but I'm hoping for 2022, guys, I'll be right back into the swing of things. So I thought, hey, why not start the year with a houseplant tour? If you haven't seen my first houseplant tour, I'll put the link right up here. Maybe you'll be able to compare how well some plants are doing. But yeah, let's get started. Okay, so here's the current setup. I think last time I just didn't have that many plants, right? You can see some new grow lights here compared to the first houseplant tour. Some new shelves, obviously some new plants. So I think the first time I started from left to right, but I think for this video, we'll start from right to left, just to kind of switch things up a bit. By the way, I have a friend keeping me company today. Here she is Pia. Say hi. She is a 10.5-year-old Yorkie, and she's also smelly. I haven't given her a bath recently because I feel like the bath is not good for her wounds. She just got some staples out yesterday, so she's still kind of in the healing process, but things are looking very good. She is becoming more of herself again. That high energetic Yorkie spirit. So if you see her wandering around, she's just hanging out with me today. Okay, let's start with my propagation box. So you can see right off the bat, there is just a ton of string of turtles just taking over, and I really do need to kind of fish them out and put them into a nice pot. There is also these cuttings of my Rhaphidophora hyee, which you will see the mother plant just in a little while. It's doing nicely in there, I think. There's some aerial roots coming in, which is kind of crazy. My Hoya obovata, which they're both doing very nicely as well. There is a baby, super baby, Syngonium albo, which does not have a lot of variegation. And I think, oh, there's also this chunk right here. This one came from the Philodendron Birkin, actually the last video that I posted. And it's not really doing much, actually. Oh, it's doing something right here. There is an aerial root coming out right there. Oops. So it's doing something, and also, ooh, this is exciting. There's a new growth point right there. So that's what it looks like. Super cool. So I'm just gonna leave that in there. I don't know when I'm gonna transfer all of these plants out, but I will definitely create a video for you guys. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, next plant. This one is some kind of an agave. I got this from one of my friends recently, and when he gave it to me, it was just a very, very sad looking plant. It didn't have that many roots at all. I put it in cactus mix right here. Visually, it's done nothing, but when I tug on it, there's some resistance, so I know there's some root development going on in the soil. This plant is my Chinese money tree, and I think I showed this one in my first houseplant tour, where it was probably like half its size right now. And ever since I added this super bright grow light, it's like shot growth so fast. Like, look at how big these leaves are. Another leaf coming in right there. So cute. So I've added this shelf right here that I dug out of my closet. But on this shelf, we've got my Peperomia Hope, which is looking so pretty. I love it so much because the leaves look so plump and juicy. To the left of that, I don't even know what plant this is, guys. This came from one of my friends who went to Hawaii and decided to bring back some random wild cuttings. I don't really know what this one is. It's looked like that ever since she gave it to me. This one is my Stramanthe Trio Star. This one has seen so many better days. It developed soil mites and it went through like a handful of repotting. I tried different soil mixes, different watering schedules, just trying to get rid of it. And I think I did, but then I think they came back eventually. So I'm trying to eliminate those stupid soil mites by bottom watering only. But as we can see, ooh, okay, I'm very excited because I rarely check up on this plant because I know it's one of my kind of sadder plants. But I just noticed there's 3 new leaves coming in. Look at that, so cool. To the left of that one is my variegated Hindu rope. A lot of people say that this one is a super slow grower, and that's 100% true because I don't know if it's just my plant, but I think I have one that's not very thriving. It's only given me maybe like 4 new leaves and that was it. I did have to propagate that one right there because it was just giving me super wrinkly leaves and was just not plumping up every time I watered it. That cutting I will show you in a bit. Actually, I'll show you right now. Right here on the other side of the room. Ooh, so there's a new leaf coming in right there. This one is growing really fast. Look at the roots in there. Sorry, there's like a bunch of algae. Look at how pretty the new leaves come in. The white parts come in super pink like that. That one is like totally white actually. There's no green at all. Very nice. So I'll probably add this one back into that pot. Moving on, behind that is my Phalaenopsis orchids, plural, because there are 3 in here. It's sitting in leca, which I think orchids do really, really well in leca. Let me show you the roots. Nice and vibrant green. This one is kind of growing out of the slit right there. But look, for the longest time, this was the only flower spike on the plant. All the other ones had fallen off, but a new flower spike came out of that one and is just about to bloom. There is a flower spike on here that had already started blooming, and it's this one right here. So pretty. There's a total of, I think, 4 flower spikes. But yeah, I'm excited to see all of these flowers bloom because they're so pretty. Below that, this is one of my baby Syngonium albos. This leaf right here is so pretty with all of that white. But yeah, this one is quite happy. This one is in a happy category. Next plant is my Begonia maculata YDI, which, I don't know guys. I think this also came from my how to create a propagation box video. But what had happened, why it looks like this guys, is because that night, this was the plant that I forgot to add water into the pot. And so by the next morning, the plant had already kind of shriveled up. But I thought, hey, maybe it'll bounce back. So I added water, and this is what we're left with, guys. Like almost a whole year later. Here's an update for you guys. The propagation of this Philodendron Birkin. Look at that new growth right there. There's 2 actually. They kind of look like nipples. There were 2 leaves on this mother plant that did turn yellow and fell off. I think that was yesterday. I really hope those 2 actually take off. This plant right here, this was the propagation that I took from the OG Pilea peperomioides, and this is what it looks like now. So evidently the leaves are still coming in quite curly, and I still can't figure out why, guys. Like, it kind of stresses me out, so much so that I did eventually buy another one of these plants. But I mean, I wouldn't say it's thriving, but it is surviving. Despite all of those curly leaves up there, if we look in closer, look at how many babies there are. There's just a ton of new baby plants and very healthy leaves compared to like all of these ones right here, which have these like yellow spots going on. But yeah, this one was a top cutting from my OG mother plant. One day, this is going to be a super lush, full looking pot. This plant right here is my Dracaena marginata. The care for this plant is super easy. I just water it when it's dry. I don't know why it's lopsided. It was straight one day, and then I put it on that shelf, and for some reason it decided to give me some kind of leaning tower of Pisa. But other than that, I think this one is very happy. So back here is my Alocasia amazonica. I don't know, this is one of the plants that will forever be in the sad category. It's not giving me any new signs of growth. Here is the big Mama Monstera deliciosa. This is one of my OG plants. In the beginning, I also had to repot this plant a handful of times because it always gave me root rot, it always gave me fungus gnats, and I could not figure out its care until very recently. Because if we look at the newest leaf right up here, it's so huge. And look at those inner fenestrations right there. Just crazy. And that's the first leaf that actually came in with these little wrinkles right here, which apparently they help the leaf kind of orient itself towards the light. So that's the function of those little wrinkles. So those are all of the plants along this wall under this grow light. Now we'll move on to the plants along this side of the shelf. And let's start from the bottom. Here is my rattlesnake calathea. This one also was not thriving for a super long time. At one point, it did not give me growth for like weeks and weeks. But if we look into the foliage here, there's a lot of new growth. There's two over there, one over here, which is super exciting. And then if we kind of tilt the pot, you can see some more. Well, maybe not. All right, moving up, here are some propagations of the Begonia maculata. There's not much going on in here. I think I put this in water like 3 days ago or something like that. So obviously there's not going to be a lot of root action. So this one actually came from that mother plant right there. And one night I just randomly decided to propagate it because a lot of the new leaves coming out here on the top were coming in very, very small. So I thought, hey, why not propagate it and hope for new, bigger leaves on the mother plant? But in this jar, we also have some cuttings of my Scindapsus pictus exotica. Why don't we move on to this one right here because it's kind of in the way. This is my string of hearts. A lot of the leaves up here have fallen off, and I think it's because it's too close to the light, because I heard that this plant loves bright light. At one point, this light was like that close, and I think that was too much light, so I pulled it back a little bit. And you can tell String of Hearts is getting a lot of light by the color of the leaves. These are very, very pink. Normally they're more of a green like this, but if you give it more light, they'll turn pink like this. If you give it too much light, that will eventually fall off. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. Look at that. Over here is my Philodendron Brazil, which is one of my happy plants. It's giving me new growth like very consistently. It's sitting in a very, very chunky, airy soil mix right there. It's got some orchid bark and things, a lot of perlite, but I do need to give it a lot of water because this is one of my thirstier plants. If I hold back on the water for a little bit too long, a lot of the upper leaves on here will turn yellow like this right here. See? This plant right here is my Tradescantia nanook. I'm just now starting to understand this plant. At first, I thought it will really like very fast draining soil. So I put it into a very chunky soil mix and then into a terracotta pot. But apparently they like a lot of water because I tried to hold back on the water as long as I could. I would only water it when it's dry, but that eventually turned into like a lot of these brown crispy leaves. So to kind of offset that, I water it more frequently, and since I started doing that, it gave me more vibrant colored leaves and not as much of that browning anymore. So this is the mother Scindapsus pictus exotica. The leaves are like so huge up here, but I love the way this kind of vines down. The leaves are getting smaller, and that's because I'm letting it trail down. But the top here is kind of bare. So one day I hope to transplant some cuttings up there because I do have some cuttings over there that I want to put into the pot to make it fuller. All right, onto the top shelf Oh, actually, peekaboo, there's a baby Pilea peperomioides back there, which is my friend's that I'm trying to look after, but that one has been dormant for a while. Up here on the top shelf is a variegated ivy. So I bought this one to replace the last variegated ivy that I had, which completely died on me. But this one up here is thriving. This is definitely one of the happy plants. This is my marble queen. This one is like taking over this shelf, and I love the way it does that. But if we look at the newer leaves down here, they're super green, right? Actually, as a matter of fact, all of these leaves down here are green, green, green. This is the last variegated leaf right here. So I will definitely propagate it to kind of reset the variegation at some point. Here is another variegated plant. This is my variegated Monstera albo. This one actually is the mother plant. And what's crazy about this one, guys, is this leaf right here. This is the leaf that started everything. I bought it as a single leaf cutting, and believe it or not, this leaf is actually still hanging on. Now the browning and yellowing, it does progress over time, but I just can't believe how long it's hanging on, because it's got so many leaves. This newest leaf right here has inner fenestrations. There's one, there's the other one, and it's so pretty. All right, next plant is my Monstera siltepecana. This one I got from Mickey Hargitay's plants, and I featured this one in that shopping video. And it started off as a very small plant with like maybe 3 or 4 leaves. I gave it this handmade trellis that I made from a wire hanger, and it's actually wrapping around twice. And this is where the new, or the top growth is right here. Okay, so here is the top cutting, and as expected, it is starting to yellow in the oldest leaves, which is normal. But let me just show you the root growth on this. Look at that. Remember when I was talking about how those aerial roots would kickstart the root development? And that's what it's doing. Look at that white! This is my Ficus teneki, which has seen a lot of dark days. Okay, not many light days like this white variegation. So when I first got the plant, it had a lot of white leaves. But then over time, those white leaves like just fell off. They crisped up within like the week and then just fall off. I gave it a lot of TLC. I repotted it into a I think this is a very organic mix. There's a lot of worm castings in there, so I think it likes that. All of the new leaves here are coming in very nicely variegated. This one is like a very nice ratio of white and green. But luckily, all of the white leaves are still hanging on. This is the Monstera albo, the bushy one that I created by combining all of those separate plants and cuttings. Not much to report on this one other than it has looked the same ever since I finished that repotting. There is not a single new growth on here, even though it does sit in front of this south-facing window. So I think it's kind of dormant. I'm just thankful that it's not like yellowing and dying, so cross my fingers. Okay, now let me move some plants around so that we get a better look at all of the plants along the window. Alright, so we have a hanging basket of Hoya cartesii. This is definitely one of my happiest plants. Look at all of these leaves. They're so healthy. This one loves the sun, so that's why it's sitting up here directly against my window. Can't wait for this one to just be super lush. This one is my mother plant of the Hoya obovata. What is there to say about this one other than look at how big these leaves are? Alright, this is the plant that kind of kickstarted my YouTube channel. This is the Mother Syngonium albo. I have attached the vines to my wall up there, and I'm letting it trail. And it's like wrapping all the way around over here, where now at that point it's starting to look for light. Look at how beautiful the variegation is on some of these leaves. I don't remember what the names of these plants are, but I think it's something like Devil's Ladder and Parallel Peperomia or something like that. I'll put the name on the screen, but I really do need to repot these guys because this one is kind of turning yellow. And this one, I just need to propagate it to make it look bushier. But other than that, I think it's quite healthy. Here is my string of pearls. This one, I could not figure out its care, but it loves being right next to the window, just like this variegated string of pearls right here. Okay, so this one originated as a 6-inch pot, 6-inch lush pot when I first got it. And I barely watered it. It was sitting next to my south-facing window downstairs, but that window did not get as much light as this window is getting. So that lack of light coupled with my lack of watering kind of made the plant die down. In trying to save the plant, I moved it into this 4-inch terracotta pot, and I think it's starting to thrive again. So thankful for that because the variegation on this is so pretty. Now against the windowsill right here is a plumeria, which this one is giving me curly leaves, and I don't know why. I think it's because it doesn't like the cold, because it's technically still winter. That one is my baby barrel cactus, but it's not very barrel looking, if you know what I mean. This one is my crown of thorns. This one flowered for me a few times actually, and each time it would give me like a single flower. Next to that is my variegated string of hearts, which this one definitely loves being right up against the window, getting all that direct sun. I had a hard time trying to figure out its care, since putting it right there where it's able to get almost a full day's worth of sunlight, natural sunlight, that's when it started to thrive. And look at all these pink edges coming in. It looks almost like fluorescent. Okay, so here's another plumeria. This one belongs to my friend as well. She gave it to me as a stick, and so I think it's time to give it back to her actually. I just hope that she doesn't kill it. I don't remember what color the flowers are. I think it's like yellow or something like that. Here is the Hoya Mathilde, and look at all these big huge leaves, so crazy. It started off with like maybe 5 or 6 leaves, and then I did an Instagram reel of myself repotting this and then adding the stake to the pot. It's kind of cool. Here is my Hoya Australis Lisa. Look at the size of that leaf. Is that normal? That's crazy. So I hardly check up on this plant because it's tucked away behind all of the plants that are up here. But originally the leaves were like this size. But bam, look at the size of this leaf. These 2 leaves right here. Just crazy. I mean, it's sitting in my typical chunky aroid mix. There's a lot of chunky bits in there of coconut husk, pumice, charcoal, sphagnum moss. Definitely, this is maybe the top 3 happy plants in my collection. Last plant on the windowsill is, what is this called? Mermaid cactus? Something like that. But I picked this one up because look at the symmetry on that, right? This one reminds me of an actual mermaid's tail. So that's why I got it. Okay, so here is my purple shamrock. This one's very interesting because I've had this for over a year, and the first winter that it experienced, it completely died down, like down to the soil. But for some reason this winter, it never did that. And I can't tell if it's not going dormant yet. Maybe it will sometime soon, but it doesn't look like it. This one's really cool because at night, these leaves kind of close up like this. And then when there's enough light, it'll start to open up again. But yeah, this is one of the happy plants. Here is my Scindapsus trubii. And this one I also did make a propagation because it did give me a bunch of leafless nodes. But I'm happy to report that there is signs of new growth right there. Very striking looking plant. Next plant is this Thanksgiving cactus. This is probably my #1 most struggling plant. It would give me like new growth, but at the same time like lose a lot of leaves. But as I'm touching all of the leaves on here, they all feel very nice and healthy and plump. So I think now it's starting to thrive. I didn't care for it to bloom because I know that it was trying to bounce back. Okay, so I think I found the culprit of my mild, very mild fungus gnat infestation. It's some type of fern. I was going to throw it away last week until I dug it out of the soil and realized that it was pushing roots. I don't know, I have to keep an eye on this one because that fungus gnat infestation is scary. This is my Scindapsus pictus silver Ann or something like that. Let me pluck off this yellow leaf. Thank you for your service. This one is a slow grower compared to my other Scindapsus right there. But I love the way the silver speckling occurs on this plant. They almost look like they're little brush strokes if you look very closely. Next to that is my surviving. Can you guess what that is? It's actually a Monstera adansonii. This is probably the last surviving node from when I took those node cuttings. No fenestrations. It's remained as a 2-leafed plant for a very long time. So I think it's dormant, but it's not really turning yellow, so this one still has a chance, I think. And then speaking of those nodes, this one right here is a Monstera deliciosa that started off as a node as well. It's a wet stick from one of my very first videos, I believe. So it's growing very slowly, but very surely. Alright, so down here, I don't even know what kind of plant this is, guys, but apparently it's some kind of bonsai. I made the mistake of cutting this one right here, thinking that it'll push out new growth closer to the base because this is very leggy. And bonsais really do appreciate direct sun, which this plant is not getting by any means. By the way, that's his nickname. So this is my Monstera. This is not a Monstera. Mother of Thousands. And it gets this name because this is a very, very weird plant. It grows babies on the edges of the leaves here, and then it develops aerial roots right there. This is definitely an alien plant, which I need to repot. Oops. Up above that one is jasmine plant. This started off as a really, really long cutting, which I had divided up. This one actually does love the sunlight as well, which is not getting much where it is. Yeah, this plant is not thriving at all. This is my peace lily. My very first peace lily. It's just now starting to thrive because it's giving me a lot of new leaves. But in the beginning, it went dormant for a very long time. It only gave me flowers like once. Okay, so here is my philodendron micans that I did a video on where I repotted the plant from a concrete planter into a plastic nursery pot because I think that the pot was just too cold for the plant and it dropped a lot of leaves, and that led me to believe that this plant is very sensitive to the cold. So I put into this nursery pot. It's starting to recover, but very slowly. As we can see, the new growth is starting to come in. So here's an update of that. Let me kind of dig in here a little bit and see how those transplanted cuttings are doing. Can't really tell. Don't remember where I placed them. I don't know, but there is some new growth coming in. You can see there's one right there. There's some action right here. So overall, I think it is bouncing back. Okay, moving on to this plant right here. This one is a wax ivy. And this one is so wacky, okay? The way these, the vines grow, they just try to latch onto like the nearest object, because what it does is it throws out these very wispy vines and they're very thin towards the end. And when it touches an object nearby, it starts to like wrap itself around it. So that's how it grows. You can see how this right here is starting to wrap around itself. Okay, so behind that one is one of my original aloe plants. It takes a very long time to give me new leaves, but there's one right there. Now above that is my original mother plant, Monstera adansonii, which has been giving me yellow leaves, but I'm trying to combat that by moving the plant, because at first it was sitting up there where it was both not getting a lot of light and getting very warm drafts from my AC vent right there. So I decided to once and for all move it from there to here, where it might be getting a little bit more light from this grow light and from a little bit more sun exposure from the window right there. Now this one right here is not healthy. This is a transplanted Marble Queen pothos, which I took a cutting from that plant, and it's turning yellow, and I don't know why. I think it has to do with the pot and the soil. Might need to be repotted, and I need to check the roots. But there is a vine in here that is doing really well with a lot of mottled marbling variegation. There's also a Syngonium albo in there, which at first the pot was living right here next to this Syngonium albo. There was a point in time where one of the vines was touching the soil of that pot, and then it decided to take root into that soil. So I thought, hey, maybe it just wants to move. So I snipped it on both ends. Now it's just happy in there. I think maybe it's starting to take up the nutrients, and that's why this plant is not doing so well. I don't know, that's just a theory. So up there is my snake plant. Not much to say about that other than it grows very slowly. Okay, so those are all the plants on the IKEA shelf setup. Now let's move on to the final section right here. This is the OG Pilea peperomioides, okay? Very, very OG Chinese money plant. I mean, you can check out the playlist on this plant, but the leaves always have been coming in very curly, and to this day I can't figure out why. And then I thought I would propagate it and cut it, and then it shot out all of these new pups, but even the pups are coming in curly, right? So I don't know, had enough with this plant, and I'm just letting it do its thing. I just kind of stopped babying it, but there is a new pup right there. So, I mean, it's not sad. I think it's doing fine. It's just not thriving. This is my Rafetophora tetrasperma. Now, the last video I did on this plant, I talked about how I thought it might have had the mosaic virus because some of the leaves on here, I don't know if you can tell, but there was a bunch of like light, almost yellow colored splotching on the leaves, but I think they went away for the most part. The other issue was that the new growth was coming in very curly like this. Like normally the leaves feel very thin and natural, but a bunch of the new leaves came in very thick. Almost like if I were to kind of bend the leaf, they would just snap from being so thick and plump, which is weird. But I think that was just a phase, because if we look at the top here, there is new growth that feels normal, like not abnormally thick and plump. There was a abnormal leaf right here that was thick and plump, and that one just yellowed and fell off. This one is another example. They're so, I don't know how to describe it. So I'm just gonna let it continue doing its thing. Hopefully in the springtime it'll give me more and more healthy leaves. All right, so here is my Rafetophora hai that I repotted. So right off the bat, you can see that it's yellowing, and it's not making me too happy because I don't know why it's doing that. I think it's probably because it is winter, and this one is one of the sensitive plants to the cold, and I think that's why. Prior to this, there were very long, leggy vines with literally tiny leaves. So I snipped them, and that's what I threw into the propagation box. But there are no signs of new growth, so I don't know what's wrong with it. I might have to propagate this again, like cut it back to somewhere around here, especially for that vine because it is continuing to yellow, but also this one as well. The other vines in here I think are doing okay, not really the best, but I'll keep an eye on that one for sure. Here are some propagations of my Philodendron micans. This one I have not changed the water, but we can see there's a lot of root action in there. With this one, because I think it's time to repot it very soon. Oh, by the way, there are some strands of my Trubii right here. I'm trying to repot this into a separate pot because I don't want to put it back into this pot and risk like shocking that plant again. So I'm gonna put this in a new pot sometime soon. Back here is my Philodendron Pink Princess. I don't know what to say about this one because I don't know if it's thriving. The older leaves have turned yellow, like this one, and fell off, but it is giving me new growth. The thing about the new growth is that they're not as big as like these other leaves right here. I don't know why. I think it might need even more humidity, which I'm trying to score an IKEA Milsbo cabinet. I've been waiting for months for my IKEA to get them back in stock. They say that it might be back in stock this week, but it's still out of stock. Next plant up here is my Scindapsus pictus exotica cuttings that I decided to throw into LECA. So if we take a look at the roots, wow, these are super healthy LECA roots, guys. And I say LECA roots because LECA produces roots that are, I think, pretty sensitive. You have to be careful when putting this into soil because they don't behave the same way as soil roots. LECA roots will take a while to acclimate to soil roots. Okay, moving on to this little plant stand right here. This is one of my newest additions to my collection. This is an Anthurium forgetii, which I bought for $80. Yes, that's a bit pricey, but I did buy this off of a local gal. But yeah, I love this plant. This is my very first Anthurium. I'm super excited that it's not like completely dying on me. I just recently found like some kind of new growth. I believe it's a new growth in here. It's hard to see, but it's right there. But I love the way the leaves look like a turtle shell, and the leaves are very velvety. It's very beautiful. I hope it continues to thrive for me. Speaking of thriving, this is my Alocasia silver dragon. There is this leaf that is falling off, but this is the biggest leaf that unfurled for me about a month ago. Look at this, guys. There's babies in there. Another baby in there as well, like right there. Just crazy. And there's also one about to pop out right there. But yeah, I love the foliage on this. So cool. Okay, this one right here, the same friend that gave me some of my other cuttings was the same one who went to Hawaii and literally plucked this off a wild. This is Hawaii's state tree. This is a candlenut tree, also known as the kukui nut tree. I'm almost like having a connection to this plant because it is native to my birthplace in Hawaii. I'm very familiar with this plant, so it's not like a super rare plant for me. I'm gonna give it back to her really soon, but it is really cool. Okay, let's take down this plumeria tree. So this one was also one of my finicky plants. At one point it lost all of its leaves, and that's very common when you're living in an area that it's not native in. But as of 2 weeks ago, it started to advance and it started to grow into these full leaves. But you guys, I don't know why it's starting to curl up again, because that was one of the issues that I've had. I cannot figure out why the leaves are curling. At first I thought it was curling because it had a spider mite infestation, and I was like going crazy trying to get rid of the spider mites to the point where I decided to cut off almost all of the leaves. And I think the spider mites are gone, but the curly leaves are back. And there's not a single spider mite on here, I hope. So I know it's not a spider mite issue. It just might be, I don't know, maybe it's sitting too close to that light right there. So maybe I'll put it down on the floor and then see how it does within the next few weeks. But this one shoots off like very vibrant yellow, orange, pink flowers. So, okay, down here is my ZZ plant. This one is super exciting because that one has stayed dormant for such a long time until a couple of months ago. It pushed out these newer leaves, these stalks right here. And look at how big these leaves are compared to like this. So here is another one of my OG Monstera deliciosas. It's very leggy, and that was from when it was not getting a lot of light and humidity. But as we move up the plant, we see that the fenestrations are coming in and it just looks more bushy, like starting from up here to there. Just like the other Monstera deliciosa in the beginning of this video, I do want to chop and prop it because I just want to get rid of all of this. This is ugly to me. Moving on to this middle shelf here. This is a watermelon peperomia. This one was also one of my very sad plants because I think I was very inconsistent with the watering. This one is a thirsty plant. I have to almost overwater it in order to like maintain these larger leaves. Otherwise, they would all come in very small like that and develop all of these tears, which is not pretty. This one is also one of the plants from my friends. I don't even know what this is. Some kind of bush. All right, back here is another Monstera deliciosa. This one originated as, or actually this is the baby Monstera deliciosa that I filmed in like one of my first videos, I believe. The aerial roots have started to take off. As you can see, it's like in shade up here. So I don't think it's thriving as much as I would. It's okay. I think I might move it somewhere. And then if we move up from that, we've got my string of turtles right here. Now this one, all of the new growth are coming in very small. And I don't know why. I think it's because of the winter, because it is pushing out all of these flowers. This one is my rickrack cactus. I think it's only now starting to thrive because a lot of these upper, I don't even know what you call this. Is this a stem or a leaf? Most of them have turned mushy and have fallen off. It's starting to grow in, which is kind of cool because when they are first coming in, they have like this pinkish orangish tinge to them and looks so cool. Now behind that is another slow grower. This is my Hoya Crimson Princess. I'm thinking of propagating it because all of the variegation is coming from this stem right here. And as you can see, that's the apex. There's no signs of a new growth. So I'm thinking of chopping that off. Hopefully it'll force a new stem down the vine. Okay, final section. Right, Pia? Thanks. So up here, this is a Ruby Cascade that I got from my friend Hannah that started off as a very lush 6-inch pot, but I had managed to save a couple of strands in here because I was not giving it the sunlight that it needed in the beginning when I was going through my house renovation downstairs, which I'll show you some of my plants downstairs right after this. Some of them are getting too much light, like this one. These are starting to yellow, but in general, this is a very light-loving plant. Okay, so that's the variegated Hindu rope that I was talking about earlier. Here is I think this is an Echeveria Black Prince that I took propagations from, the mother plant that I gave to my friend. But this one needs to be repotted because this is just a mess. Like the way it's growing, it's not very pretty at all. So this one right here is a Frizzle Sizzle. I can tell that it needs water by feeling all of these leaves up here, and if they feel very soft and not as springy, then I will water it. Here is my Hoya pubicalix, and I did a video on this a long time ago, and it is continuing to give me nice growth. Somewhat smaller leaves, but I think that's because it's wintertime. But this one is also a very easy care plant. Finally, this plant back here is another aloe. This one has seen better days for sure. At least for me, this one doesn't root well in water. It will definitely take root in soil. Okay, so I think Pia is trying to tell me that she's getting bored because we've been in this room for at least an hour now, talking about every single plant. But let me go ahead and show you all the plants that I have downstairs now. Alright, so we're starting to lose some daylight because decided to take a break and run some errands, but we're back. The plants over here started as the plants that needed to quarantine because they were going through some issues, or they were like new plants that I decided to keep away from all my plants. But then I decided to like keep some plants here for display. So this is the curly spider plant with all of the babies right here. I think it's actually really happy where it is right now. Next to that is my Philodendron Lemon Lime. This one grows really slowly for me. It has a good amount of sunlight right here towards the afternoon, as you can see. Below that, it is my Dieffenbachia carina, which I did a video on, and it never really bounced back fully. So I don't know what's wrong. I think it just needs a lot more humidity. So this is actually the wrong spot to be in because there is a vent right up there. And this is my old humidifier, which I rarely use. It's currently off, so I might have to move this one upstairs. Next to that is my crocodile fern, which I believe is still trying to acclimate, hence all of these brown spots. And it's still in its original pot. So, I mean, once I see like a lot more signs of growth, then I will repot it. This is another plant that does really well with high humidity. So maybe these two plants I should move upstairs. This one I just brought back out. This is a caladium. The weather is kind of getting warmer, so that's why I decided to bring it out. And I watered it last week. I might need to water it again. Here is a propagation of a wax ivy. And as you can see, there's roots. Next to that, this is a Ficus audrey, and this is one of the plants that I left down here to quarantine and to acclimate, but look at this. New leaf coming out. Next to that, the new Pilea peperomioides that I got because I was getting bored with my other ones. This one hasn't really given me any new growth, and I did just get this one about a month ago, so I mean it's still trying to acclimate to my home environment, I believe. But hopefully this one pushes out new growth with flat leaves. Next to that, this is the Calathea White Fusion, although I think I need to start calling it Green Fusion because there's no white on here anymore. This one came from Hawaii when I shipped it to myself, and back then it had a lot of white leaves. Unfortunately, due to the plant trying to acclimate to the weather here, in my house especially, it lost all of those white leaves. I repotted it into a very, very chunky, airy soil mix, and I made sure to keep it moist because this plant likes to be consistently moist. And then all of the leaves came back. There are a couple of leaves in here with some of that white variegation, like right there. Okay, so those are my plants over there. Now I do have a plant right here. This is the fiddle leaf fig. So this one has not done anything for me for the longest time, actually. I did just get this light for it. I'm keeping it at the purple light setting, hoping that it'll help it grow. But this corner gets really, really cold in the winter. So I think that's why it's not doing well. It did drop 2 more leaves. Hopefully when the weather warms up, it will give me a lot of new growth because there is something happening there. Okay, so on my dining table, this is the Peace Lily. I did feature this one in one of my Lowe's shopping videos, and the reason why I got this one was because the leaves were coming in somewhat variegated, like this one right here, if you can tell. Okay, this one right here. So I believe it was some sort of sport variegation. It lost all of that because I think I'm not giving it enough light, and it's also not getting a lot of humidity downstairs, and so you can see that they are developing all of these brown tips. But that's okay because I am keeping it moist, and it tells me it needs water every time it starts to droop. So this is a very easy care plant as well. And there is new growth coming in here. Let's check if there's variegation on these leaves. I don't think so, but that's fine. Okay, so right next to my sink is the bamboo. Not much to say about this one because this is a very easy care plant as well. It doesn't require a lot of attention. All it does is just sit in this water reservoir here, and every time the water would come down to like this level, I would then fill it back up with more water. And as you can see, that's a lot of scale buildup on top of the stems here. So I want to make sure to give it a full rinse every now and then. This is a very hard to kill plant. All right, and finally, this is the final plant. This is a fake bird of paradise flower. But the rest of the plant is real. There are brown tips, there's a lot of imperfections, and you can't fake that. Although some of the newest leaves here really do look fake. Like at the edges, there's like this thin, translucent layer. Pretty interesting. But I've always wanted a bird of paradise. I don't know what color this one is, but by the looks of the fake flower, that's what it is. I know, at least in our climate here, they don't really bloom often, but yeah, I love the shape of the leaves on this one. I know these can get very big as well. So yeah, that's the final plant in my collection. Alright guys, well that's about it for this houseplant tour of 2022. But hopefully in this video, you'll see some plant updates that would otherwise not be covered in some of my other videos. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to keep up with some behind the scenes updates, then you should definitely follow me on Instagram @suchplants. If you enjoyed the video, please do hit the thumbs up. And if you haven't yet already, plant scribe. Alright guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!